So I'm here today in Stroud at a shop called Loose with the owner Julie Brown, who is going to talk to me a bit about how she is helping the people of Stroud cut down on their single-use plastic consumption. So tell us a bit about how you got started with this project.
I read a book by a woman called Elizabeth Gilbert who wrote a book called Big Magic. And she talks about the fact that ideas exist out in the ether. This is just kind of her vibe, her belief system, that they're out there looking for somebody to manifest them. And that's what this project was like for me. I don't remember deciding to do it. I don't quite remember how I did it. It was almost like it just chose me.
It happened to you.
It was a concept that needed to be created, needed to be manifest, and it happened to me and through me. You know, it was hard work, it has been hard work, and it continues to be quite hard work, but it's just flowing, really, and it's so much bigger than its geography, because it's a tiny little shop, but it's just turned into this sort of conduit where ideas seem to be converging and people are coming in with various offerings. So it's just this thing. I feel a bit like I'm at the hub of a wheel and there's just all this stuff spinning out, and it's making things feel possible in Stroud, I think. And there's a lot of existing groups in Stroud. We've got a good permaculture group, we're a transition town, we've got lots of zero waste people. My landlady, Helen Wace, who's been amazingly supportive of the project, started a whole food cafe in Stroud called Woodrush 20 years ago. So there's kind of we've got a long tradition.
Culture here.
It is. Although I grew up here and it was very different in the 70s. Stroud itself is a gathering place, actually. There are people coming in from all over, wanting a certain lifestyle, you know, wanting something different. You know, we've got a community supported agriculture scheme here, which is amazing. So you get glorious organic veg box every week, and you can go and buy eggs and extras, and they have community gatherings as well. They have a barn dance once a year.
Oh, lovely.
And then we've also got something called Stroud Co, which is a food hub, which allows any local producer to offer their product, their produce, to the community. So as far as I understand it, you know, if you had an allotment and you've got 20 marrows, as long as you're registered as a Stroud Co supplier, you can just put those 20 marrows on, and people can just buy them. So we offer the produce from the shop through that organisation as well.
Sell when you've only got a very small, maybe seasonal window of what you've got, and you wouldn't be able to make a year-long business out of it, but you can still have.
It's a way of avoiding it going to waste. You know, you've got more than you want.
That's fantastic.
You'd like to get it to people who want to use it.
Fantastic. So while we've been here today, lots of people have come in, obviously, to fill their containers, and some of them know what they're doing, and there have been some people that have just come in for a nosy. What's been the general feel? Because you've been trading now for 14 days.
Yeah, this is day 14 of trading.
Yeah. So have you seen people that have come in for a nosy come back more prepared?
I have. In fact, there was a gentleman this morning who'd been in before to check out, because it's a new thing for people, you know, and they don't understand how the concept works, so they come in and say, you know, it's a fairly predictable conversation, which is, do I need to bring my own containers?
Yeah.
Often they'll say, can I bring plastic containers? And I'm like, yes, don't buy new ones, but please, if you've got, let's use what we've already got. People have brought in empty bread bags and so on and so forth. So it really is, you know, any old container. We sent some pasta out in an empty cardboard box the other day, so we really are kind of trying to improvise and just be really resourceful. It seems to be opening people's eyes, and they're going, oh my god, I could make bags like, blah blah blah, and it starts a whole train of thought and a whole different possibilities. It's allowing people to see different possibilities in a joyful way.
So one of the things that we were talking about earlier was the fact that you've got so many different containers and utensils and things in the shop that you've found in charity shops, in vintage shops, second-hand, and these sort of fortuitous things that have just come into your life that fulfil such a purpose here. Yeah, the
universe supporting the journey.
Julie was also telling me about this Japanese concept.
Shibui. Someone out there will probably correct me about what it means.
I thought that this was really interesting. So do you want to explain that?
Yeah, as far as, you know, all you Japanese experts out there, if I'm wrong, please correct me, but my understanding of Shibui is that you use what already exists in a really simple and elegant and functional way, and in so doing, you create something really beautiful, unintentionally and unexpectedly beautiful.
And we were also talking about the fact that because they're all different, they've all got different textures and colours, and everything's very tactile.
Yeah.
And it's visually really interesting being in the shop. You can't maybe see that on the video, but there's just so much going on, and it's all just really nice to look at.
Yeah.
There's a lot of green going on as well, which I like.
There is quite a lot of green going on. I was just really aware that it requires a little bit more effort from people and a little bit more of their time, and I wanted to make it worthwhile them doing that. So there are a lot of...
it's a very pleasant environment to come into, to spend your time doing your shop, rather than fluorescent lighting, sterile supermarket. This is... It's so much more pleasurable to be here, where everything is just so nice looking and interesting.
These copper baskets, I got them from a lady in a shop in Cheltenham.
Might want to show the camera the copper baskets.
She's shut in a shop in Cheltenham. She's got a little kind of cafe shop that does workshops, but they're getting rid of work. They realise the workshops are their bread and butter, so they're getting rid of these. I never would have thought, oh, I know what I need. I need some copper baskets, but they're shiny. And they're not plastic, and they're a great shape for putting stuff in, and I can hang, and so they've just arrived.
Yeah.
And they're, and they're multifunctional, and they're just another thing. But I would never, I guess when they design big shops, they have all this big team of people planning it.
Yeah.
There wasn't very much planning here. There was just, I think, an openness and a responsiveness, from a really kind of intuitive heart.
So I saw this earlier. This is a very nifty step stool that you found for your shop steps.
I was just dropping my daughter somewhere and I drove by and there they were, folded up neatly like this in the window, and I was like, oh my gosh, we're going to sit, and there they were. Time and again there were things like that happened that just made me feel really supported by the universe, like the coffee grinder.
So when I arrived earlier, Julie was in the process of trying to grind some coffee, and she came up with a really ingenious solution to a problem that presented itself, and I just thought this sums up everything so beautifully that I thought I would get her to show you what's been going on here. So this is your coffee grinder.
It is.
So you've got a big jar over there of Brazilian coffee beans.
I do.
And someone wanted some, so you were going to grind them some coffee in the grinder, which is beautiful.
It's actually technically a malt mill. And the story to behind that was really interesting as well. Driving down the Gloucester Road in Bristol, I don't know if you know the Gloucester Road.
No.
It's a fantastic street in Bristol. I think it's the longest independent high street in the country. And they've done the community there has done a really good job of keeping all the chains out. So there's lots of kind of small retailers, and they must be managing to keep the rents relatively low. So there's this shop with all this kind of stuff on the pavement, and my daughter went, that looks like an interesting shop, Mum, shall we go in there? And there it was, sitting all made up on the shelf, brand new but second hand.
Yeah.
And it's actually a malt mill.
Meant to be.
Just meant to be.
Yeah.
It's actually a malt mill, but it works perfectly fine for grinding coffee. You have to hold the table still. So you get a workout in here as well.
It's energy efficient.
It is energy efficient.
Only burning calories.
Yeah.
But also, you're able to repair this.
Yeah, because it kept sliding off this morning.
So tell us a bit about this bit of cardboard box here.
Well, it came with this kind of metal washer, which is too thin to do the job, and the handle kept wanting to kind of slide off of its pivot, and so this morning we improvised with several layers of cardboard to actually create an effect like a washer. We will get something more permanent.
And it's working now.
It works.
A small piece of cardboard. Julie's also made these little business cards essentially for the shop. Yeah. Bits of cardboard box. So was this from suppliers or something? The cardboard that you get?
Yeah, the dried fruit probably came in this cardboard box.
And it's been repurposed immediately here in the premises. But there are so many cases like this where actually a little bit of thought and time put into actually just stopping and assessing the situation, rather than just thinking, oh, I need a new coffee grinder, this one isn't working, is exactly where it is. This piece of cardboard is just it just sums it up so well. I just thought I would share this with you.
Low skill. It's a low skill solution. In my opinion, this is the most interesting item in the shop and the most kind of emotional part of the journey, actually, because I found them on Facebook Marketplace. 30 quid. I was Googling I needed some scales that would weigh and print a label.
Yeah.
So anyway, I found this set because there is a fantastic system made by a company called Bizerba, which has got touchscreen technology and it'll manage your but it's in excess of £2,000, and I wasn't in a position to. That was pretty much my whole budget for the shop. You know what I mean? So anyway, so I went and picked these 30 quid scales up, took them home, lovingly cleaned them, started to research on the internet, only to find that I couldn't get a manual. Anyway, so the first hurdle was a manual, and I ended up having to buy a copy of a PDF file for $15 from America. Rang Avery Burkle that made the scales, obsolete, not remotely interested in being helpful at this point. Stage 2, okay, well I'll try, now I've got the manual, I'll try and get some labels. Nobody made the labels anymore, they'd all thrown away the cutters for that size. So the first quote I got for the labels was £300 to print the labels. But I just became obsessed with keeping this piece of 30-year, they were made in 1988, 30-year-old, but still fully functioning from the point of view of weighing, set of scales. I just became obsessed by keeping them out of landfill. So after various hours on the phone trying to find people, I found the labels, got the labels, put the labels in, still wouldn't print. Then I had somebody who knows about electronics look at them, and he said, oh, you need a different key. They've got an X key, you need the Z key to be able to get to the programming part for the labels. So rang Avery Burkle, no, you've got no chance of getting a Z key. So I rang George on Gloucester Road Bike Shop where I bought them originally and said, George, I need a different key. He went, I'll have a look through the drawers and see what I can find. So he sent me a text saying I found a key, and I went, I love you. He must have thought some completely mad woman. Bring the key home, get to the programming, still no joy. And at this point I was like, I'm not giving up, I've gone this far, I'm not giving up. So I rang Avery Burkle, purely by coincidence or randomly, got hold of a guy called Tim, if I remember correctly, and thank you Tim, who built these as an apprentice 30 years ago. And he said, well, you know the printer's got some internal fuses, perhaps some of the internal fuses are gone. So they went back to the friend of my partner's who knows a bit about electronics, and he went, I'll have a look for you, and sure enough 2 of the internal fuses had gone. So he replaced them, and then he rang me that evening and went, in his good Gloucester accent, you're never going to believe it, it's printing! So, I mean, amazingly, anyway, it came back, the labels fit, it was printing, and I was over the moon. Put it on the shop floor, we open on day 1, and all of a sudden it starts playing up. It just won't let us put the price in properly. Anyway, it turns out it has a bit of a, I think of them, they're like a woman and they like to be touched in a certain way. And it will work on the 100 gram. It's not so keen on the kilo price. Nobody thinks in kilos anyway, people aren't buying in kilos. No. So we just do the 100 grams and it works. And I took them to the scale doctor just to get the calibration double checked, and they are gram perfect. So that just feels like such, you know, we talked earlier, didn't we, about things that epitomise. Yes. That's really epitomised the whole ethos and the journey for me. She hasn't got a name yet. She's definitely a woman, but she hasn't got a name yet.
So one of the things that we were talking about earlier was the people who are not people who would ever have thought like this before, but who are walking past and see it, and it sort of sparks something. You were saying some quite interesting things about the target audience for this shop and what your vision was for getting this message out to different people. So I wonder if you could tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, well, my partner and I in the early days had lots of conversations about not wanting it to be, no offence meant, a kind of middle class niche. We have a kind of phrase in Stroud, yogurt weaving, not to only appeal to those kind of people. That's generalising, but I'm sure everybody understands what I mean, that we wanted the option of reducing your plastic, single plastic use specifically, to be available to people from all walks of life. Yeah. You know, people who eat Cocoa Pops as well as people who eat muesli. Now at the moment we're in a very tiny shop, and so I've had to focus on the kind of products that people who favour an organic product would kind of gravitate towards, really. But in the long run, I would like to have loose cornflakes and loose, you know, there's no moral judgment on what people eat here. Yeah. But we have to prioritise the space for things that I know we're going to sell.
I asked Julie what was the most common thing people said when they came into the shop for the first time, and what was it you said?
I've just come in for a nose.
Just having a nose.
And I've jokingly said if I'd had a £5 for every person who's come in the shop and said that.
And this sort of
doing really
just
well.
the fact that it's here, and the people who are walking past and looking through the window and thinking, oh, and it starting that conversation going.
Yeah, it's made me realise actually that I probably haven't got enough stuff around the shop that explains to people that you bring your own bags and I can help you weigh, or you can weigh it yourself, you know, all that kind of how-to stuff. A bit more about the concept,
I
think, rather than the sort of philosophy behind it. So I think there's some practical issues to address here to make it make people feel comfortable in and having a go at doing what is quite a new thing for many people. Although I've been told that until about 12 years ago, Stroud did have what they used to call a bin shop. We would have a bin shop with lots of loose produce, which would have been, I guess, Weetabix and icing sugar and, you know, all manner of things. Probably slight seconds. I remember as a kid, you know, you'd go down and you'd buy the broken biscuits, which didn't come in a packet. They came in a jar and they just took them into a bag of some sort. And so I guess that, you know, there's a sort of a history of that. So yeah, I think there's an opportunity for a broader offering for sure. I can't do it in these premises. And without more people actually frequenting the shop and making this a place that they really do their shopping, rather than it being just a little
bit here,
token exercise.
It needs to be weekly grocery shops.
I won't be able to scale it up, and I'd really like to scale it up as a service to the town.
And to really make a big difference.
And to really make a big difference. And you know, there's lots of ways it can make a difference, not just around the plastic thing. When the mayor came and very kindly graced us with his presence and his lovely gold chain, he pointed out that it also represents an opportunity for reducing food waste, because you're not, the supermarket, the vendor, me, is not dictating to you how much you have to buy. You can buy exactly the quantity. If you're making a recipe for something, uses an ingredient that you wouldn't normally use, you can come in and buy exactly, you know, the 180 grams that you need, instead of having to buy the 250 gram pack that the dregs of which then sit in the back of your cupboard unused for 2 years until they're too stale to do anything with, and they then end up in the food waste. So there's that aspect of it too.